town sky, Lake Erie wind, old scars stitched in a second skin. We were raised on cold and fight, every heartbeat red and white. Echo in the boards, crowd breathing fire, names on the glass like a funeral pyre. This is our house, this is our sound, from the Cleveland concrete of gold. Let's go crunch, screaming till your chest caves in. Cleveland loud, we rise again. Red and white in the blood we punch, from the first face off to the final crunch. Turn the volume past the pain, Ohio hearts in the heavy rain. Every hit, every rush, Cleveland lives in the let's go crunch. Let's go crunch. We've got storm.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Let's Go Crunch podcast, part of the Land Media Group. I am Ethan Greenberg, and alongside of me is Drew Hagenbaugh. Drew, how are we this evening? Are we better than we last spoke last night?
Yeah, you know what? We're doing good today. Obviously, last night was a rough loss to take, but you know what, though? Having this guest on today is going to be making it a little bit better. So I love who we have here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're all supporting our teams here, win, lose, or draw. You and I are both Spurs fan. I've got my Gardos hat on. We're in good shape here, so it'll be all good. But yes, definitely doing a little bit better. Recovery from last night. Certainly looking forward to next week's matchup. A return to the Wolstein Center,
Sure.
and the Crunch will take on Bridge City. Pittsburgh, that is, to most people. And we'll have to talk to our guest about the natural rivalry of the Cleveland-Pittsburgh. Thank you all for joining in here tonight, back on a regularly scheduled night and time. Thank you very much for being with us. So, for everybody, joining us tonight will be Corbin Williams. He is the director of digital marketing at the Cleveland Crunch. He's also a marketing coordinator at Arrivo. I'm going to have to ask him for the pronunciation, athletic wear. So we will talk to him here right about now. And joining the program, Corbin Williams, director of digital marketing at the Cleveland Crunch. And you're a marketing coordinator now. Is it Arrivo or Arrivo? Tell me the correct pronunciation of that.
It's Arrivo.
Arrivo athletic wear. Now, they are the uniform supplier for the Crunch and their apparel. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah, exactly. We're based up in Cleveland, so local company, always nice to have that. And yeah, we've been doing the jerseys for the Crunch for the past 6 years now, starting as Unitas, now rebranded to Arrivo. So love having that.
That is awesome. How competitive is the athletic apparel and uniform market?
It's very competitive. Like, there's a lot of brands out there. A lot of big name brands, Adidas, Puma, you got those out there. A lot of smaller ones. I think Arrivo's nice to have with the Crunch for, we're local, relatively small company, but we can do a whole lot of custom design work and a lot of personalized approaches for a lot of these teams. And so it's a position we like to be in.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, do you have a favorite personal brand that you like Nike, Adidas, Pumas, Arrivo?
I'll say Arrivo.
There you go.
A bigger brand. I always like companies that take a personal approach to things. I've been for my soccer career, I've been a Puma loyalist just because I'm forced into it because nobody else makes size 14 cleats. So there's that. But I always like when companies custom teams and don't treat everyone with templates and as an afterthought. So that's something that other companies are able to do.
Well, and it looks like, you've got quite the resume, but now you said your soccer resume, you're a Puma enthusiast. Where did you play soccer? What levels did you play at?
Not very highly. I played recreation. I played at the club level throughout high school, and then I played mostly recreationally beyond that. I had a little stint in the 7th division in Germany for a while. That's not as high as it sounds, but enjoyed that for sure.
Hey, you know what? It is what it is, bud. Hey, you're not going to get any hate from me over here. I can't do squat. I'm lucky if I can run down the driveway without being out of breath and going, all I feel like on the movie Along Came Polly, the guys, I forget what the actor. I don't know why I'm blanking. He's shooting threes, rain down. He's like, all right, timeout, timeout. My lungs are burning. My lungs are burning. I feel like that's me. So I got nothing to say about anybody who can play sports at any professional level. So you certainly, you have a great background here, and for working with the Cleveland Crunch. And I mean, watching these guys play, just talk to us a little bit about the level of like kind of appreciation of what they are doing out there and how hard they work for anybody who might not really have an idea of what, all the work they put into it.
Yeah, I mean, these guys put in a ton of work to do what they do on the field. We have so many local guys on our team. We're really lucky to have that. So, seeing these guys go out and compete on a national level, all being from Cleveland or having played in and around Cleveland at the college level, seeing these guys put in the work that they do and able to compete for national championships like that is something that you really just have to appreciate. They have a lot of commitment to this team, and they put in a lot of work on a weekly basis to make that happen for us.
Yeah, and the team is building up this year. The team moved back downtown for its home games at the Wolstein Center. And I'm sure that's created a unique experience or a ramped up experience for you in terms of the marketing. How has all that been going? What's the reception been like, and what are we going to see for the remainder of the home matches? Got three home games remaining.
Yeah, the reception's been amazing. It's obviously been a big adjustment for us all going from the Sportsplex out to the Wolstein Center, but being at the Wolstein Center has been nothing short of amazing. We had a little dress rehearsal last year with the finals being hosted there, and now to do it for a full season has really just been great. I mean, the fan atmosphere at the Wolstein Center has been phenomenal. We've had some great games there as well, and it seems like the reception from the fans has been amazing. From a marketing perspective, I mean, there's a whole lot more that we have to do now that we're not capped in terms of seating like we were at the Sportsplex, and so it's always a grind every week to try and get people in seats at the Wolstein Center, but that's been going pretty well, and we're really looking forward to the crowds that we'll get at the next 3 games. Got 3 games coming up, first of which is this weekend against Pittsburgh. Really looking forward to that. First responders and
Yes.
Military Appreciation Night, so that's going to be huge. Fans, if you're turning in, you can use code responders. If you've got family that are, if you or yourself or your family are military or doctors or nurses or anyone who would fall under that umbrella, they can use code responders at checkout on Ticketmaster to get 20% off tickets for this Sunday or Saturday. So that'll be exciting. And then we've got the buy one get one free
Yes.
promotion for the end zone. So I think that's exciting. Just trying to keep it as affordable as possible for everyone to get to these crunch games at the Wolstein Center and show our appreciation for the fans.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely huge, to make tickets cheaper and whatnot, because the whole goal is to get people into the Wolstein Center, obviously, because, going to a Browns game costs you $100 to watch the team lose every week. And who would really want that? But, behind the scenes, into the marketing world, what all goes into, especially moving into a brand new facility, getting more people in here, you're not capped. What kind of hard work goes into what you do to make sure, you get these events going, you get people into these kinds of seats, and, you get the value of, the entertainment you're putting out there?
Yeah, I mean, everything goes through a few different pillars. I mean, one of them is the sponsors. So a huge part of us in being able to operate the team the way that we do is the sponsors. So we're super thankful for everybody who's able to do that. That's a process that starts long before anybody even thinks about crunch season going on. So, that's something that we really need to prepare. We needed to prepare for, and something that we were able to do pretty well going into the season. And the marketing aspect of it is just making sure, like, the thing that I wanted to do when I first started with the Crunch 3 years ago is that my priority was that I wanted to make it as easy as possible for everyone to follow the Crunch, no matter where they were, whether it was in the stadium, at home, it's something that I experienced just being I studied abroad in Germany for a while, and I was following all my teams, including the Crunch from abroad. And so especially with COVID, it amplified that as well, having to watch a lot of things off your couch. And so I wanted just to make sure that we gave fans the best experience possible, to follow the team and from every aspect, whether it's streaming, social media, website, anything content related, making we've been translating that over to the Wolstein Center as well. And then just making sure that we get people in seats. So making sure that we are able to, target the right people. We want to get in with all the youth clubs in and around Cleveland, getting group tickets, which has always been a big priority of ours, to make sure that we're able to get, groups of youth clubs and other groups and organizations into the Wolstein Center. That's always been big for us.
Yeah, and you talked about wanting to get people in. You talk about affordability and such, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't. So I'll throw it out there, and if you don't know the answer, that's okay. Like, what is the average ticket price? That you would buy at the. I don't even know if you can buy them at the door anymore because it seems like that's out the window. But on Ticketmaster, what's the face value? Average ticket price.
I believe the average ticket price is somewhere around maybe $25, $30.
And that's not bad at all.
Not at all. Oh, and
No.
I mean, with the buy one get one promotion, you can get 2 people in there for, I believe it's $35, fees included.
That's unreal. That's unreal to be able to get that kind of entertainment.
Yeah, family of 4, you could get in on that discount for about $75. So, it's and you can buy them at the door. So that's still
perfect.
You can even save on some of the Ticketmaster fees by buying them at the door. Usually they open about an hour to 90 minutes before each game. You can get them at the box office at the Wolstein Center. So
that is fantastic to know. I know
absolutely.
I know that a lot of places there are, like around Progressive Field, there's no people to go and stand and buy tickets from anymore. They've got, what do they have, like a kiosk, like to do it electronically?
There's an electronic kiosk you go up to buy tickets or whatever, and it's annoying or whatever.
Well, you know what though, guys? I'm going to take you in the Wayback Machine to something that was really old and like completely antiquated. Back in the day, you would go up to you could go up into what was Kaufman's or which was formerly Macy's, formerly Kaufman's, and I don't even know, but you'd go upstairs and they had a Ticketmaster office up there, and you could go up there and buy the tickets, up at this department store. You're going up to a Ticketmaster window in a department store. That's how old I am. And in terms of planning for the Wolstein Center, the larger crowds, the larger venues, and I mean, how much work does that take to figure out, okay, we're going to need X number of vendors. We need this in terms of food services and people setting up stands or whatever to sell apparel. How big is that, ask?
It's certainly a much bigger operation. I mean, a lot of this is done in collaboration with the Wolstein Center when it comes to merchandise and food vendors, and so a lot of that is done in collaboration with them. But I mean, we're a relatively small team if you compare that to other front offices around the Cleveland professional sports market. So there is a lot on our shoulders, and there's a lot of preparation that goes into each weekend that a lot of people don't even realize, whether that's getting jerseys done for new players, or getting new sponsors on board throughout the season, and getting everything ready for game day. So there's a whole lot of work that goes into that.
So 2 questions. You said getting jerseys ready for new players. I think we saw a team with some duct tape numbers on their jerseys.
I applied that duct tape. Yes,
dude. Nice. That is nice. That's not so much, but I mean, that's it is a big thing. People may not think about it, but to be prepared for that, and it's not a simple nor a cheap process, I assume, to have uniforms ready, and when last minute you got a new player joining the squad.
Yeah, and that's a big benefit of Arrivo too, because they're just right down the road in Westlake, and if we need something like that done, we can head right on over and get that ready. So I mean, I'd recommend that for every team out in this area, especially because that's a big benefit of that, is that local connection. If we need some more merchandise, or if we need some extra jerseys or something on short notice, we can usually always make that happen. So that's been really beneficial.
Yeah, and my question is, thinking more long term in a sense, with the MLS Next Pro coming in here and the new women's professional league coming in here, do you think with those coming to Cleveland, would that help the Crunch, get a more bigger audience as the game continues to grow in the city? Because obviously we're a winter sport, so with those that played in the spring, summer, fall, and then you got winter, do you think that will help, attendance numbers, help grow the league a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm incredibly excited for the Cleveland soccer scene to grow. I think it's
Yeah.
going to help everybody from us in the arena soccer scene all the way down to all the youth clubs that we working hard to kind of build those programs around Cleveland. I'm excited for those teams to come in. I think that, we've already worked with the Cleveland Pro Soccer Group on some initiatives and some cross marketing with them. So I'm excited to work with them in the future on things like that. And I think that even though the soccer calendar seems to be shifting a little bit, because I know MLS start adopting the fall to spring approach soon. So there'll be some overlap in terms of games in the future, I would think, with their season falling in the spring, kind of like ours. But I don't think that I see too much competition in what is, a very different product from both sides, but both a mutual, a love for the same base sport that I think we can both benefit from.
Right. And in terms of your marketing, how have you found it to get kind of things better covered around the local market? I mean, certainly Cleveland, they always say, it's a Browns town first, and even though they stink, and then it's the Cavs and the Guardians, but to try and grab the attention of the rest of it's a good product and deserves some coverage. I know that sports coverage on the weeknight sports, the anchors have very little time to run highlights or even on the weekend. But I mean, they used to always have somebody out covering the Crunch games or the Force games out of the Coliseum way back in the day. At least, it wasn't a long segment, but it was something. It was something. Um, how is that going? Are you making any headway with kind of getting more coverage for the team locally?
Yeah, we're always trying to promote our product as something that, it's incredibly fast paced and, very entertaining, even for the neutral viewer to watch. And so it's a lot of the things that people, and that this no hate on standard soccer, because it's the sport I grew up playing, but
Yeah.
everything that people tend to complain about with soccer being slow and low scoring, that is all completely out the window with arena soccer. And I think it's
Right.
something the general American soccer, or the American sports fan who's more into, the NBA, NFL, things like that, would appreciate. And so I think that highlighting that, is a lot of the core part of our marketing, as well as trying to target, a lot of the people who, went and watched the Crunch back in the 90s, who want to feel that kind of same nostalgia and, remembering those legends and seeing us play back at the Coliseum at the Wolstein Center where they, used to watch us. But I think that, we do what we can and to try and get as much media coverage as possible. We've made a lot of headway in that regards. A lot of, TV appearances and
Yes.
we've had throughout the season, getting people at media day and at some games. So I think we've made a lot of progress in that regard. We do what we can. There's still a lot of outlets that, don't necessarily think that, we're quite at that level yet, but I think that we're showing that, throughout the course of the season, that we have the draw and we have the fans and we have the product to be able to put that out on a larger scale and to hopefully capture a lot of that attention in the future.
Right. Well, we're getting some questions. First of all, thank you once again, Corbin Williams, on with us here this evening. Corbin Williams is the director of digital marketing at the Cleveland Crunch, and he's also marketing coordinator at Arrivo Athletic, where we're getting some questions about the team in general. Thank you all for who are commenting here on the Let's Go Crunch podcast, part of the Land Media Group. Thank you for joining us this evening. And so let's talk a little soccer. Let's talk a little
Yeah.
soccer here, Corbin. Talk about the team. What's up with the 2-game slide? Is it an injury thing, a tactical thing, or what? Drew, we talked about it last night with Ryan. We talked about it last week on the live watch along with Kevin Arnold and our man behind the scenes, Mike Wilkes, about some of our questions about the tactics. I mean, Corbin, you're there. What do you think about like what you've seen out of the team? Just your personal thoughts.
Yeah, I think over the last few games, we've seen a mix of a lot of injuries and just rotation. Starting with that game against Fort Wayne, I know that was a more comfortable win, but we saw getting a lot of experience for a lot of younger guys, a lot of guys who joined the team this year: Carter Hancock, Jamin McCourt, Noah Albana, to name a few. But getting those guys some reps before the season really starts to come to a critical point, I think is both important, but also sometimes can be a risk in terms of chemistry and all that stuff. There's some injuries. Admir's been hurt. He hurt himself during the first quarter of that Fort Wayne game. He's hopeful to return by the end of the month. Bobby got hurt in training a while ago, so he'll also kind of on the same timeline. I'm not sure if either of them will play this weekend. It's possible, but hopefully, have them back before that Chicago game in March would be good. A couple of other injuries, but mostly, there's a lot of guys who just are not available to travel to some of these games. And so, that's the unfortunate reality of it. But,
Right. And I appreciate that. And thank you for the insight on that. And Drew, I mean, you talk about it from the tactical perspective, and I love your insight. Maybe you've got some questions or thoughts that Corbin can weigh in on.
I mean, there's always something, but in a sense, obviously I talked during the broadcast yesterday about, we talked with Ryan, obviously, with the chemistry and whatnot. The free kicks didn't look all the greatest. And, you talk about the young guys getting them acclimated into the team. When it comes to, especially coming up against Pittsburgh, it's a home game. It's a massive rivalry, whether you think it's football, baseball related, whatever sport related it is. Cleveland and Pittsburgh is always huge. Do you think that there's a sense of massive tactical changes in a sense? Like, I know last night they bring up their goalkeeper and we're not really pressuring. We're leaving spaces open in the middle. They're kind of firing shots from everywhere. To now you move to a bigger field and now there's no chance of doing that. Do you think there's like tactical changes coming along, especially with the young guys coming back from injuries and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think I would go more towards returning to what our identity has been in terms of keeping possession, retaining control of the game. I think that going back to playing on a smaller field on the road, the lines are all completely mixed up from what these guys are used to playing. And so I think that ideally, having most of our our starting players come back into the squad, I hope. And then combining that with, being on our home field in front of our home fans, being able to play the game the way that we want to play, I think that that's going to be huge. And that'll certainly be a tactical shift from what we've seen in the last couple of games and those games that we slid. Toronto's field is small. It's
tiny,
incredibly small. And McIntosh hits his head on the goalposts. Like it's incredibly small. And so similar thing in Rockford, not quite as small as Rockford, but definitely not what we have. And so I think that we'll be positioned to be able to play our game and control the game that we want.
Right. And we talk about this. So look, this week we've got Bridge City, Pittsburgh coming in here. We won in their place earlier this season, 9-5. We've hit a 2-game winless skid. Last night we got an overtime loss. That was unfortunate at the very end of the game. We regained the lead finally on that beauty of a shot by Piwu, only to give up the tying goal and then lose in overtime. How are you building up this game for the fans to get them pumped up for it? I know it's the military and first responders night. Anything else that you can speak on that fans can look forward to, or will it all have to be a surprise?
Yeah, there's a lot of things coming. I think that one big draw of this game is we're pretty close to getting into the playoffs now. And so, that's something that we'll want to monitor going forward. There's a lot of scenarios out there. But essentially the way that it is right now is if Pittsburgh were to lose to Rockford tomorrow, we would be able to clinch playoffs at home this weekend with the win over Pittsburgh. So
That's huge.
fine. I'd love to do it against Pittsburgh. A lot of respect for them. And I hope that that's a rivalry that we can maintain because there's a lot of talent on that team. They have a good fan base. They sell out almost every one of their home games. And so it's a smaller venue. It reminds me a lot of how we were when we started out at the Sportsplex. And so, lots of respect for that team. And I think that it's going to be exciting having them come into our house and us being able to play our game there and, playing that, at our place. So I think that that's going to be huge. We're going to have a chance to hopefully qualify. If not, that'll come pretty soon and we'll be able to book those tickets to Vegas, I hope.
Yeah.
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 Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Drew.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Drew. Go ahead, Drew.
Obviously with the rivalry between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, do you think this is going to help attendance this coming weekend? Because obviously we're 2 hours away, and I'm sure they're going to travel well. So do you think this is going to be good for the Wolstein Center, the attendance and whatnot?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're coming off 3 weeks without a home game.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, always a huge rivalry. I mean, even if I think it's hard to manufacture a rivalry just because of the names of the locations, but I think that this has the potential to develop into, one of our bigger rivalries. And I think that it's something that fans will be able to get excited about on the field. The league's been more competitive overall this season, which is something we've seen, especially in those last couple of games. And so Pittsburgh, I think that's going to be huge at home this weekend. Fans are, I think, really missing that home atmosphere. And so our players are as well. So
Right. 2 questions for you. One, have they been able to sort out the HVAC situation at the Wolstein Center?
yes, the heat is back.
Okay,
Nope.
that's important. Well, I know that it was
It'll be back to normal.
Okay, cool.
that is good. I haven't. I'm down in. I'm 500 miles away in Richmond, Virginia, so I haven't been there. But Drew and Mike are up there, and they had to brave the cold up there. Have you received a lot of ticket inquiries from the Pittsburgh fans that you're aware of, or in conjunction with the Pittsburgh organization?
I'm not aware of anything, but I got the opportunity to speak to a whole bunch of people out in Pittsburgh when we went there that were all really enthusiastic about making the trip up to Cleveland. So I hope that there's some sort of contingent of Pittsburgh fans that are there this weekend. I always love it when, opposing fans make the trip, especially when when other teams don't necessarily have a lot of traveling fans. And so I think that that's an aspect that I'd really want to bring it for this game to have that rivalry there. But yeah, there's a lot of fans, I think, who are interested in going. I think only time will tell, how much it'll be, but I'm excited for that.
Okay. And so on kind of a marketing note, I've noticed, the Cleveland Crunch has partnered with the, Dick's House of Sporting. Yeah. How does that work? And can you fill us in a little bit on what fans might be able to find, in terms of Crunch apparel or how that's working with the House of Sport?
Yeah, so Dick's House of Sport is a partnership that came up very recently. We're doing some collaborations with them on, things like the post-match penalty kicks and other events, the post-game autographs, things like that with them on. There'll be some opportunities further down the line for some, some player events, some meet and greets, maybe something coming up that'll be announced very soon. Heading into the playoffs, a little event at their Dick's House of Sport in Strongsville. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. And then in terms of merchandise, currently part of the core deal is we don't have anything there yet.
Okay.
All we have is available on Arrivo Athletic Core's website and of course at the Wolstein Center on game days. But wouldn't rule that out that's something that could happen potentially in terms of getting something in retail there. But I can't promise that. But
that's all right. No, that is all right. No promises here. We don't hold. We will not hold you responsible for any of this. Speaking of responsibilities, we were looking down your vast resume, and we saw that you are a licensed U.S. Wait, let's see. Let me get this right. United States Soccer Federation licensed soccer official. And we just wanted,
yeah.
wanted your perspective just a little bit, as someone you played. You've been, you're a licensed soccer official, you've done officiating, and how you look at the game as an official and the way things are being called versus how it is for the players, and what advice you might give to anybody who would say, "Oh my gosh, these are terrible calls. This is horrible. How could they do this? It's unfair." Like, any words of wisdom there?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I was a very good official. I think I made good calls, but I think it happened one too many times that I forgot to start some clocks and
Whoops.
things like that. But I mostly did that back when I was in high school. But I guess what I take away from that is, I tend to take more of a calm and unbiased approach to a lot of those things. I'm very much I'm very much one who thinks with logic and not emotion as much. And so, there's certain calls where, you look at the call of, the one that caused the incident with Mikey, I for most fans were, outraged by that. The referee and me saw a fairly clean tackle there. And so I guys talk about that one yet. I wasn't sure which way you're gonna swing on that, but I,
No.
you know,
we talked about it on the show the day after the game, and I brought up the video and whatnot, and I slowed down because I'm a former player myself. I played in college and whatnot,
yeah.
and I sat there. I was like, even at the game, I was like, "Ooh, I don't know." I was like, "It looked pretty good to me."
There's a good tackle. I gotta respect it. Like,
I did. Like,
there's a
I
lot
have
of
to.
things, there's a lot of things like that where I think a little bit more logically sometimes rather than with emotion, even though of course I want everything to go our way. But
Yeah.
there's a little bit more logic and calmness there in terms of how I see the game.
So when you watch the games, and I know I do this, I'm guilty of this too, but like as you're watching in your own head, like not out loud, but in your head, do you sit there and be like, "Ooh, I think that's a terrible call. Ooh, like that shouldn't have been a red or a yellow." Because like when I watch games, it's like, that could go either way. That could go this way, or that could go like that. So, do you ever get into your own head? It's like, I would have not called that, or I would have done this.
I do, and I do it. I'm guilty of it during the game sometimes too.
Yeah.
I'm the one going back and like something that I've done this year is like I've been clipping the goals in real time and posting them on socials,
Mhm.
as it happens. And so that gives me the opportunity to pretty much go back and watch every goal, every play, as it happens. And, it puts those thoughts into my head a whole lot more of, critiquing what happens on the
Yeah.
field and what gets called and whatnot. So, that's something that definitely happens.
Yeah. So, if I don't have a brain cramp here, I think I was going two different directions or had two questions for you. No, because you're talking about putting up all the social media clips. How hard is that to be doing social media? Now, granted, the crunch is normally on the winning side of things, but people are up in arms on Cleveland sports social media, especially whenever the Browns post anything positive during a game. A poor social media person is posting something because that's their job, and they get the biggest amount of hatred spewed back at them for no reason whatsoever. Now, in fairness, when the team stinks and they've just gotten their butts kicked 41-7, I don't want to hear about the one touchdown. I'm sorry. I don't want to hear about one touchdown. We just got our butts handed to us. But how hard is it as the person who's doing the social media? Or maybe it's not hard because the crunch is generally, they're winning. So just thought I'd grab your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky that, we're winning a lot of games. We don't have really a whole lot to get upset about. But even I think with these past couple of losses, I feel like a lot of that feedback has still been overwhelmingly positive from our fans. We're lucky to have a fan base of people who, are very supportive of the team and who tend to be a little bit more positive. So that hasn't been too much of an issue for me or for us in terms of social media. Um, yeah, there's
Gotcha. That's
been fairly smooth sailing. There's always the YouTube comments are sometimes a little bit different in terms of, stream quality and announcers and broadcasters when it comes to games, especially on the road. But, that's not my jurisdiction. And so, when it comes to our stuff, that feedback is generally pretty positive and pretty good.
That's good. Now, um, Drew and I and Ryan, we were talking last night about potential use of something like VAR, if that's a possibility, and getting your thoughts from on that, from the perspective as an official. Also, I guess my, kind of part of that question would be when you watch something like the NBA or NFL where and then especially and maybe just the NBA specifically, they'll do that last 2-minute report and they'll tell you all the things the officials screwed up. Yet you can't go back and do anything different to fix the result. Like, one, what do you think about adding technologies for officials in the MLIS? And two, do you think as an official there is any value other than to enrage people by releasing something like a 2-minute report or anything which puts into question what the referees did on the field?
I think that, well, first of all, to the technology, I'd like to see it. I think that especially with how quickly indoor soccer moves, I think that there's a lot that is just naturally missed due to human error and the speed of the game, and things that you can't really hold the average person accountable for missing just because everything happens so quick. And so I think that there could be some benefit there. I think that in terms of implementing it in real life, it would be a little bit more difficult, given that it would require a lot more infrastructure for a lot of these teams that are still trying to get their footing in the streaming world. So I think that we're probably pretty far away from seeing that implemented in reality, but I think that it's something I would love to see in terms of additions to the league. And as far as it goes with that, I mean, I've seen like the MASL do those, reports for,
Really?
I don't remember if they still do this because I haven't tracked that in a minute, but I remember them doing, in the past, like a little show where they review and they talk about all these, controversial calls and let people vote on them and whatever. So I don't really think that there's a whole lot of benefit in doing things like that. I think it just, you can't do much about it. It is what it is. You just have to get over it.
Well, right. If you're going to do it, if you're going to show me that, why couldn't you get it right in the first place? And then what are you going to do to fix it? The game was lost or won because of some terrible call. I watched and just I lost my mind the other week. I'm watching Kent State. I don't know who they were on the road. Actually, it was last week in the Sun Belt Challenge, and they're playing at Southern Mississippi. It's down at the end of the game. The ball clearly goes off of a Southern Mississippi player right in front of the official. Kent State didn't have a challenge remaining. They had no timeouts remaining. I'm like, how do you not review that? They stopped the game in the NCAA basketball so often. It was crazy during the NCAA tournament. And then over the past couple of years, why wouldn't you look at that? Are you blind? Are you kidding me? And I mean, now granted, Kent State lost that game on their own. Missing free throws is not, and turning the ball over. That's their own problem. But how can you not do that? And I lost my mind watching the game. Probably my family thinks I'm nuts watching sports. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think that there's, I'd like to see that kind of tech in our sport, but I think you also need to set some logical caps on it on what can be reviewed. Kind of like you have in basketball or in volleyball, where you get a certain number of challenges, so that because it's very easy to scream about almost anything in that sport. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. So
absolutely.
Yeah, no, as a ref too, or a former ref, do you think that teams get officiated a little bit differently than others? Being a Spurs fan and being salty because Christian Romero gets a red card about every other game. Do you think there's some teams that kind of get the benefit of the doubt? Is there that actual like home bias versus away bias for teams, stuff like that?
I haven't really seen a whole lot of that in terms of, a bias towards one particular team. I think you can make that argument when it comes to certain games that there's a lot of calls going one way rather than another, but I don't necessarily think that there's any direct patterns in terms of, this team is always, always gets favored. I think there's games where, where we've gotten, the benefit of some calls. I mentioned,
sure.
The foul, was actually called with a blue card on that Mikey tackle, I don't think, so, you have some officiating things where, they kind of lost control of that game just a little bit, but, a lot of those calls that were made on the field actually went our way. So, there, there's necessarily any general patterns of, refs favoring one team or another, but
Right. And in that game, as I was just making the motion, that was what the coach did for
yeah,
Chicago that drew him he got a suspension for that. So that was, but all of that out of actually an incorrect call, or what appears to be an incorrect call. We'll say appears to be. I shouldn't say it, we'll just leave it at that. Because I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble. But all right, so I'm gonna throw you a curveball here because we're talking officiating, we're talking that type of thing, and I use that pun intended. Automatic ball strikes, for or against?
What do you mean automatic ball strikes?
Balls or strikes in umpires, baseball. Are you
Oh,
are you for the ABS or not?
I'm not the biggest baseball watcher, but I don't.
I mean, because it seems like the strike
for
zone
that.
changes an awful lot.
I
The
think
1995 Braves. I'm talking to you.
I'm not a loyalist, but I think that that's something that I would for. I think that I'm not opposed to automating any part of officiating that isn't. It's one of those rare things. And I think that. I think it's good to take a lot of the human error out of those types of calls. It's the same thing with goal line technology in soccer.
Yes, yes.
And so I think that, that's something that you could, as long as it's reliable.
Fair
And
enough.
I think, maybe you test that in the minors. I don't know how you would ensure that necessarily going into it, but I think that that's something I would be in favor of.
Yeah, I think they have done tests in the minors.
Have they?
They have.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're going to implement however they implemented it last year in spring training, where you get a couple of challenge calls per game. They are going to implement that this coming season in the majors. I'm all about like trying to eliminate some of those human error things, because as Drew and I were talking before we started here tonight, my theory is the rules are the rules, and either it's this or it's that. I don't know what you're supposed to do other than follow the rules. And how can it be?
Baseball is a non-contact sport, and so it takes a lot of the subjectivity out of those calls. And so I think that that's something that isn't all that bad. Not something you could do in soccer in any capacity.
Right. But just in general, in applying the rules as an official, like, look, these are the rules. So it's like, if you're going to apply it, this is how you apply it, and you shouldn't change from game to game. And I think, as Drew was talking about, like, where is there ever some home cooking, essentially, or any of that field? But yeah, I gotcha.
I agree.
Well, Corbin, we've kept you for far too long. We really appreciate your time. Anything, just last things to let us know, let all of the Crunch fans know for this coming week, Saturday night, February 21st, 7 p.m. at the Wolstein Center, Cleveland taking on Bridge City out of Pittsburgh. Big game. Just fill us in with anything that you'd like to let fans know here before we head on out this evening.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to see a big crowd come out and support the Crunch at the Wolstein Center. I think the players really need it, especially after the last few games. A lot of home support. Really want to see everybody at the Wolstein Center. There's a lot of opportunities to do it affordably. We'll be honoring first responders and military at the game. Bring your friends, bring your family. Code Responders gets you a 20% off discount. Doesn't just apply to responders. You can bring your own family, friends, anything you want. Buy one, get one free. End zone is the code. So hoping to see everybody at the Wolstein Center this Saturday, taking on Pittsburgh. Big game. Second versus third place. It's going to be huge.
It is. It is absolutely going to be huge. And thank you all for everybody who has joined us and commented. Drew, I didn't want to cut you off. Anything else you needed to add here? Are you good, my man?
I'm all good. I just want to say thank you, Corbin, for joining us and all the work that you do for the Crunch.
Yeah, thank you guys and all the work you guys do to help us promote the Crunch. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It is our pleasure. So once again, folks, our guest this evening has been Corbin Williams. He is Director of Digital Marketing at the Cleveland Crunch and a Marketing Coordinator at Arrivo Athletic Wear, the proud uniform suppliers of the Cleveland Crunch. So thank you very much, Corbin, for being with us. Thank you to all. Look at it's good gear. It is good gear. I need to get
gear.
Great gear. It's great.
Thank you to all who have joined us here this evening. All the comments, really do appreciate that. And thank you. He is not here this evening, but thank you to our man behind the scenes, always the man, Mike Wilkes. So for Corbin Williams or Drew Hagenbaugh, I'm Ethan Greenberg, and you have been tuned in to the Let's Go Crunch podcast, part of the Land Media Group.